Well, we got the blocks back in. Okay, and you must get yourself WhatsApp, because otherwise you won't be automatically notified of this. Davido, how nice. Jerry should give me the smile full on, baby. Great. Oh my gosh, we got George Harrison with us. Amazing. Look at that. Terrific. Okay, let me get our recorder ready here. Too much light behind you, Gavi. I cannot see your beautiful face. Can you pass me the printout? Pass me the printout. Printout already.
I should print now?
No, I printed you already. Enough. It's gone. Pass me the printouts.
Sure. To print out the last page, there's a lot of really amazing stuff.
Or if you want to, but we don't really have time. Okay, great. Sam? Oh, God, I just the right and wrong moment. Oh, great. You want to start without this? The first Eretz Yisrael Shir. Right, this is it.
Oh, really? Ever?
He's back. No,
I've been here
but this is living here.
Yeah, wow.
That's tremendous. That's really tremendous. So, Ellie, we've been missing you. I don't know. You're probably living in some religious area and you're not allowed to have a phone. I would imagine. I thought so. Okay. So I'd like to take a few moments to make a brief review and also to put into focus the particular tradition of this week's year. And because of that, we'll make this really a brief theme and a very quick review of some of the main points. So I just want to mention, I mean, really, we've been working on this parsha for 40 years, and every year there's been new things. So, I mean, when I'm talking about focusing on the new, I mean really and truly focusing on the new and not getting caught up. So, besides all the fabulous shorashim that are provided to Yisrael here, which we dedicated so many of the past years of shiurim, and besides the immense demands that are made here for creativity, for development, for escaping the environments that shape your mind and that make it impossible to be free, as the Rabbeinu Bachya speaks out, and the Rambam speaks out, and it was related to it such length. Besides the careful analysis and the understanding of the relationships that we've had here that form the future, whether it's in terms of the Arba Malchiot, that here, the Arba Melachim, that literally become the Arba Malchiot, as the Medrash points out. Whether it's the actual Bris of Machashecha Gedola Nofelas, whether it's the Rushas Aretz and the L'Rachba and the concept of Kibush, whether it's the achievement of the first Rechush from Eretz Mitzrayim, or the actual creation of Eretz Goshen, or the actual empowerment of Hagrizim and Hareval, as Rashi points out, and we'll get into more later, whether it's the idea of the Rephaim and the way in which that provides the entire bris for Eretz Yisrael later on, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to define for Moshe Rabbeinu Eretz Rephaim, or what's considered to be that Eretz Rephaim. all of the Ramazim that begin at the beginning of the Parsha in terms of the Rechush, which is the Avarecha, the Agadah Shemecha, which is the shame that's achieved here, and the Goy Gadol, which are the Bonim that are achieved there. And we've spoken about in the past, and gone through so clearly how the Parsha actually is built on that very first Tucha that defines for us the three inyanim that have to be achieved right here. Besides the creation, literally, the first bracha of Shmona Esrei that comes here, which is the way that B'chochot min, V'lochot min, V'zeo shomrim eloi Avraham, Zeo shomrim eloi Yitzchak, Zeo shomrim eloi Yaakov. The remes to David HaMelech in terms of the Magen David that comes from it. The literal language of that bracha, the Konei Shamayim V'aretz that appears over here, which is the Konei HaKol, and all of the Chazdei Avot that are actually achieved, the incredible transition between Shem, Melchizedek, Noach, and meeting up with Avram Avinu that are so stressed in the Haftarah, the way Rashi explains the entire Parsha, according to the Midrashim, besides the beautifully striking contrast made between the first 10 generations and the achievement that they had of Et Elohim Yitalach Noach, and this new meaning here of Yitalachti Lefanav, with all of its implications. These are all things that we've spoken about before and that have become really fundamental shorashim in understanding the nature of the development of Klal Yisrael, which ultimately is the nature of the development of Adam, which ultimately, of course, is the literal Bihi Bar Am of the Toda Shamayim Va'aretz that take us all the way back to Bereshis, which is here the Bris on Eretz Yisrael of the God Masa V'Gibliamo, which, as the Ramban has explained, is literally the continued development of the story in which it's possible to understand why the difference of God Masa V'Gibliamo, what is the shorish of the Yerusha of Eretz Yisrael for Klal Yisrael, all of those things we've discussed in the past. But what we spoke about now that I think we should focus on as being particularly nogea this year's insights is that the contrast to Noah is not given merely in terms of the Et Elokim versus the Hitalech Lefanai, two different versions of Hitalchut, and the amazing implications that we saw in the Rambam about how the world was completely dark, in Rashi's rereading of the Gemara and creating a situation in which there's Lo Yanachshav L'Klum, his understanding that this is therefore a qualitative difference that creates a completely new concept of what Adam is. But there's the additional recognition that the Hitalech Lefanai, which comes together with Hayet Tamim, is so deeply different than Noach being Eser Elohim in terms of Tzaddik Tamim Hayah B'Dorotav. That sense of Hayah B'Dorotav is so unbelievably different than getting a Tzivoy to Yitalech Lefanai V'Hayet Tamim. You understand? One is Hayah, one is Hayet. So the idea is not only in terms of the difference in the Yitzchak, it's in terms of our understanding how it is that he starts off as Tamim, and over here you've got 120-year development of that Tamimut, which we thought once upon a time was the simple meaning of what it was, to be that Tzaddik Tamim. Here it's something to grow towards, and it's only mentioned in connection with the Mila, which itself is such a tremendous change, which we've seen in the past, and hopefully we'll point out the new elements of it here. So in fact, what it forces us to recognize is the way that the entire story of Avram Avinu is a process which can at least excuse all of the Rishonim who identify these horrific problems, which if one works on the Parsha, one sees that they're not problems, they're actually solutions and the shorish of everything to come. But whether it's in terms of the way that Avram didn't trust HaKadosh Baruch Hu, made the awful mistake of going to Mitzrayim, which of course defines the entire future of Yeridas Mitzrayim, the Rechush Gadol, and then everything that happens to Yisrael in Mitzrayim, all in terms of Meisav Simon Abani, or whether it's in terms of the horrible way that Sarah treated, oh my God, this Radak, she must have been beating her up, and it's terrible what it was that was done to her, or whether it's the awful way that Avram Avinu treats his wife and giving her over to Paro, and so on and so forth. One can excuse these approaches because of the clear-cut understanding that what we're looking at over here is a developmental process, whether we agree with the approach or not. But okay, we're not talking about a tzaddik tamim. We're talking about somebody who is working towards tmimut. And obviously the striking differences in the development of the relationship between Avram and Sarah that culminates only in Chayei Sarah, and which really does go mamish from that very beginning, in which it seems so much that she's a mere kli to him, l'man yitavli ba'avurech, until afterwards, where we recognize that all of the brachot that he had were only b'schus Sarah, which we required HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give him another bracha, even though Sarah had already died, as we'll see later. And whether it's in terms of the Shema B'Kol La, which is clearly such an unbelievable change from the original Ki Shamata L'Kol Ishtecha, that it's almost a joke, in the contrast between the Adam aspect of Avram Avinu versus the original Adam, which we'll have to understand more of. And this process over here is going to completely redefine the presence of women bichlal from this point on. Again, as we will see, but we've already discussed in the past, the way that the Torah here transitions from Chayei Sarah onwards into a world that is only really perceived by women, which is astounding, which Rivka has to take charge, which a 5-year-old little girl, outthinks the Gadol Hadar and redefines Yetzias Mitzrayim and B'schus Noshin Tzidkonios and so on and so forth. It's clear that major changes are going on here. And that means that in understanding this process, which amazingly, the Torah actually incorporates in the very nature of Bereshis, which of course it must, because the Emach HaShecher Gedola is actually the Aretz Hayta Tov V'Vo V'Choshech Pnei Tohom and so on. So it's obvious that we're going to get back to that union of understanding the nature of the bris, which is Karmais V'Gidiyamo. But in that same words that are given in Bereshis, in which the definition of the process of Bereshis as opposed to the Vayichen of Bereshis is exactly this word, Behi Bar Am, which Chazal tells, read that as Be'avraham. So in the course of the development of Bereshis, we talk about the course of development of Avram, precisely. So obviously it's going to be very process-oriented. And in understanding that process, we come to understand not simply the Koach Ma'aseh V'Gid La'amo, which allows us the ability to be Zochet Eretz Yisrael, but we come to understand what it is for us to be fully B'nai Brit ourselves, along with that Yerusha of Eretz Yisrael. So that growth has to be towards the issues that he himself is being called upon to achieve over here. In which case we need to fully understand the Kumi Talech Ba'aretz. We need to fully understand the Hayei Tamim. And we have to see things the way that the Torah is actually presenting it here, which when we look at it closely, we come to see that this is nothing less than a redefinition of the process of evolution itself in terms of this new process of Bihibor Am. And that actually is that revolution in evolution is the only way we understood it's got to be something like that, even in the past, because it's clear that there is no way for us to understand that opening Rashi with its absolutely absurd explanation of why these 3 brachot, because they're being mitma'et through the derech, why these 3 brachot are necessary, which strikes everybody as absolute madness, since these 3 brachot are the essence of the entire parsha, the development of the entire future, going all the way to the Ve'achrechen Yetzu B'Chush Gadol, to L'Zaracha Tenet Ha'aretz Hazos, to the bracha that's given by Shem, which becomes the Kahuna. I mean, it's ridiculous. Unless it indeed is itself a opening up not only of the structure of the parsha, but an opening up to Avram Avinu himself of the immense change that has just been decreed upon him with the very words of Lech Lecha, which is, of course, as the Rambam explains, the Nisayon Arishon, because he doesn't include any Nisayon that isn't part of the actual development of Torah itself, and he explains this very powerfully. Ignore all those midrashim. They cannot be included in Nisyonot. They're all very nice, and they show nice things ex post facto. But a Nisayon can never be something that goes on in your own mind and comes of your own determination. It has got to be an absolute response to reality and to tzivui. Otherwise, it's solipsistic, and you can never know that it's meaningful, unless, of course, with the perspective of having gone through 10 real nisyonos. Absolutely amazing Rambam that changes your entire perception of it. But the Lech Lecha itself, therefore, as the Rambam describes it in one word, Nisayon Hagerut. So it's about the movement, it's about taking on entirely new lives, and it becomes the basis of the revolution in understanding what evolution means from this point on. Amazingly, what happens over here, we've always talked about the curious, coincidence of Hilchos Akum being related to Occam's razor, They call it Occam's razor, it's Occam's razor. But amazingly, if you take a look at the definition of that Ve'ayei Tamim itself, it's precisely what the definition is of Hayei Tamim according to Rabbeinu Bachya. Rabbeinu Bachya says Hayei Tamim simply means apply Occam's razor. Because what Tamim is that there should not be anything which is not required. Exactly as the Teras Hashem Tamima, it is usher to be Bal Tosif and Bal Tigra, which means that if you have an insufficient explanation or you have unnecessary parts of explanation, throw them out. And that's exactly the way Torah itself is, as the Rabbi Bach explains, which is beautiful. And that's Hayei Tamim, which means Beli Tosefet Umigrat. Kilashon Torat Hashem Tamima. Lo Tosef Alav Lo Tigra Mimenu. Mamish mitzvahs in the Torah that define the concept of Tamimus. But unbelievably, the Ramban utilizes that idea. This is just so shocking, in that Occam's razor is actually the sakin of Mila. Because as the Ramban explains, how do we know that bris Mila has anything to do with genitals? Okay, so he brings, of course, the famous Rashi's Pshat, right? So that the idea over here is Arel Zachar. Says Rashi, Kan Limdecha Shahamilahi Ba'otom Makom Shunikar Ben Zachar Lekeva. Why do you mention males unless it has something to do with male genitals? Because otherwise, what does it have to do with males? The only thing that defines the difference between male and female here is genitals. Says Ramban, that's Lefidati. You don't need this. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah, Unmaltem et arlatchem. If it had said arlatchem, you could say, it's some type of metaphor. Maybe it means aral halev. Get rid of that extra fat around your heart and make it open to love and to understanding my separations. Or maybe it means the orla of your ears, or whatever we find a lashon of orla. But it doesn't say that. If it would have said that, Shia davar b'safek, says Ramban, I don't know what it is you're supposed to be mal. And it doesn't say orlat b'sarchem at all. Then like it says, orlat, like orlat levavchem, orlat sifatchem, the way you talk. Doesn't say that. But every reference to orla like that is always a smichut, says the Ramban. Orlat X. It doesn't ever say the orlat X over here, even in terms of orlat b'sarchem. Instead, it says b'sar orlatchem. Now, what could that mean? Well, it's got to mean the only element on your flesh which you can apply Occam's razor to. What the heck is this for? Now, I dare you to figure out anything else on your body that you could say, what the heck is this for? In which case, it's amazing, right? So it becomes a metaphor to the entire concept of what it is that you need to train yourself to think about as well. So he says, Ein beguf, there is no thing on your entire body that is otain v'choseh efer, that it's doing nothing but wrecking things by covering up things that need to be used, unless it's zulati basara chofet atara. What else could it be? You've got this beautiful atara, and now it's hidden, and it's not useful. Or what are you going to pull this out of the way, and so on? So what do you need it for? To get infections? So therefore, a basar is always, says Ramban, it's always used for the phallus. Gdalei basar means fat bricks, or zavni basaro means exactly the same lashon, something that comes from your basar. So it's a unclear but nice way of talking about the basar or, but that means it's Occam's razor, which is unbelievable because you couldn't apply it anywhere else on your body. So I don't even need to have a raya. Which, oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
It's called Seirah. It means Seirah.
Huh?
Ligzor in the time.
Ligzor.
Right. Literally to shave.
Yeah. But what that means is, see, this is something that we don't recognize. Because we've always understood that the concept of bris milah would be, take a look at biological evolution and understand how foolish it is, Avraham, to have made any assumptions that what it is that you are granted is necessarily relating to you as an Adam. It will only relate to you as basar. Has to only relate to you as basar. For the simple reason that the mechanisms that give you the basar that you have are predicated on one thing and one thing only. And that is reproduction, survival and reproduction, nothing else, which are all the same thing ultimately because it's survival of genes, not survival of you. So it boils down to whatever is going to be most useful in a pure basar sense is what is going to be achieved by Darwinian evolution. There's no other alternative. Therefore, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why would you think that you would measure your success as an Adam purely in terms of basar? You have to focus on the basar element and then decide how the Adam aspect is connected in the deepest way to that basar element. Now, there's one very nice way that the human element is connected to basar. You have a meat brain. But what's amazing is that the implication of having a meat brain leaves you with exactly the same problem as having a meat phallus. What gave that brain its usefulness? So the only drives that were important for it was the additional success at survival/reproduction. What that means is that any dreams that you have are so absurd when you think that your brain is a kli that has evolved to allow you to see reality. Actually, it can't be that your brain allows you to see reality because you wouldn't survive if you saw reality. That's the problem. If you saw reality, you'd be completely and totally paralyzed in terms of survival because you wouldn't have all these heuristic shortcuts to be able to run away before you even know what happens. You certainly wouldn't be able to pull your hand out of a fire before you even realize that it's in the fire. All of these mechanisms are great mechanisms for survival. They're horrible mechanisms for seeing reality for many reasons. You don't understand a thing about statistics because if you did, you'd again be paralyzed. So you're ready to be fooled by every idiotic television advertisement that throws statistics at you and sounds incredibly persuasive. You've got a 90% less chance of developing cancer if only you take our product, which when you analyze it means absolutely nothing, and so on and so forth, right? But you don't even understand what those words mean because you've never dealt with the mathematics of statistics. Your brain hates the mathematics of statistics. Now imagine if you actually needed to perceive even the reality of physics as we work it out, right? That would be really grand. You do not see objects. All you see is the interrelationship of various forces. Oh, this will really help you for survival. Imagine if your brain was open to the full range of the electromagnetic spectrum, and God knows what else. Good Lord. Can you imagine you'd have to deal with that type of sensory input? Baruch Hashem, Shalo Asani telescope. What can I tell you? So imagine if you're looking back 13 billion years every time you look into the sky. Forget it. Survival? Out of the question. So basically, in the same way that Avram Avinu, and at the same moment that Avram Avinu was brought face to face with the reality of Avram, if you are searching for freedom and you are searching for truth, you really think it's only a matter of escaping the idiots that you live with? It's escaping the idiocy of yourself. It's escaping your own evolution. That's the problem. In which case you now, listen, you, Ellie, please tell your daughter I expect another lovely drawing of the shear and a poem, just like the last time. So, to continue, so that means that in order to be able to escape this, you need to recognize that your path is a completely different path. Your path is to develop a level, it's got to be, let's think about it ourselves, okay? What would it have to be? It would have to be to develop a level of human consciousness that would allow the full utilization of basar as it is without that basar swamping that consciousness, right? Well, guessy what? How do we understand the kum hitalech ba'aretz? Kum hitalech ba'aretz, as Rabbeinu Bachya says. Listen, what do you think hitalech means? It means move your legs? You think it means that Avram Avinu spent his life running around Eretz Yisrael? Yeah? Well, I got news for you. How come he never does it? As a matter of fact, it only says, Vayoshav Avraham, Vayel Avraham, Vayavo Avraham. He's never walking. Something's wrong. What happened to that tzivur? Now, that's a little bit problematic because, as Ramban points out, actually he did do this because, look, Asa came because now he was b'Mizrach, and so he was Mekayim the mitzvah b'chayav. So yeah, it's a nice remez to the idea of it should be easy to be kovesh, it should be a chazorka, the rogachover, all beautiful shatim about the kinyonim that are done with this type of chazorka, how it relates to the idea of Yerusha, and so on and so forth. It's great grist for halachic meals. But what the Rabbeinu Bach is really asking, obviously, is not that we don't find that he did it. It's that if the Aveda is kum hitalech, then that would be his Aveda. The fact that he manages to somehow, during the course of his lifetime and all of his moves, cover the Arka l'Rochba is a pshat. And of course, you have to relate the pshat as well. Okay, but it can't be definitive of his Aveda, so what is the definition of his Aveda? Therefore, Tainas, the Rabbeinu Bachya, think about the way La'aloch is mentioned in the Torah. What does David HaMelech say? Ach b'tselem yitalech ish. What an amazing passage. People don't walk with their feet. They walk with the tselem Elokim. So the walking And this is really clear in the pasuk because it says, Avram, look, re'ei, mina makom asher ata sham. You don't have to move. Take a look and all of that Aretz will be yours. Let me take a look. It's like a magical ability with telescopic Superman vision. I mean, the whole point over here is exactly as it's said to Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Re'eyas ha'aretz. So that re'eyas ha'aretz, the Gemara learns out of Lech, that only that aretz that Avram Avinu, that Moshe Rabbeinu saw, that was kovei l'gabi the chiyuv of maaser, or like the Gemara about Tznius Bavel that we had in Brochus, in which the Ani Tznius Bavel, if Adam Arishan was kovea a concept that there will one day be a Yishuv there, then it basically we're tracing everything back to him. This is mentioned in our Haftarah. The Sefer Todot Adam. That Sefer is the Sefer of Adam Arishan. What he perceived becomes the nature of the future. So too here with Avram Avinu. It's not Stam Vayala at Shechem, and he comes to see our Grizim and our Eval and Dan and the possibilities of Shimshon and everything else. This is not just some kind of weird, semi-prophetic sense of a psychotic future. It means that with his Tzelem Elokim, that Tzelem Yitalech Ish, which is the Tzuras HaNefesh HaSichlit, that B'Tzelem means that you can ascertain, you can begin to feel out the form of the future. You understand its contours. And I pointed out in the shir that this is the incredible fact that science fiction writers are always right on target. Why are they right on target? Because they're brilliant. No, because what they're writing about is something that is so clear in terms of its contours. So of course, it doesn't matter whether you're Leonardo da Vinci and you can make your helicopters then. So it'll take 1,000 years until it'll really happen. That's not the point. You can make your starships now. Maybe it'll take 1,000 years or whatever until it happens. But that isn't the issue. I understand the directions. I understand human creativity. I understand imagination. I understand the structure of the universe and what it's mechayev you. So that's ach b'tzelem yitalech. That's what it means to be kumi talech ba'aretz. And then, says the Rabbeinu Baruch, that idea is indeed why we only find Hitalchut mentioned by the Yechidei HaTzadikim, B'chatzei HaChochmah, Noach, Hanoch, Avram. But the fish Avram etik sichlo b'chipus HaChochmot b'madrega b'madrega u'mesia nefesh hasichlit haloch v'nasoa b'asagat ha'inyan ha'kolel ha'negba. Negba is always Chochmah, right? Harotzelach kimiyadrim. And this means that his course of evolution was a meta-evolution. Evolve towards what? Survival. Exactly the same as Darwinian evolution, except survival not as living, but survival as in life. It's the same reason that later on, the choice that Moshe Rabbeinu mentions is the Bacharta B'chaim. Until this time, everybody was choosing, even without choosing, just defaulting to wanting to live. Wanting to live doesn't get you anywhere, except meat brains and meat bodies, with all of the chesrona that are involved in there. When the same drives lead you to an unquenchable quest for becoming completely human. So how does this Sephora define, in fact, what is that Ve'yeh Tamid? Kinei hashleimuta efshari lemina enoshi. Become what a human species member ought to be like. That's Ve'yeh Tamid. Or as Rabbeinu Bach and Rabbatar, Ve'yeh Tamid also means exactly the Mida Bala Mida Zu is the Kiyam HaNitzchi Le'olam. Va'ani bitumi tamachta bi, v'tatziveni lefanecha le'olam, holech betom yelech betach, ritzono b'tmimei derech. And most powerfully of all is the Rambam's understanding. What is that meaning of tamid? Which the Ramban actually mentions over here, but without the full expression of what the Rambam includes in it. He points out that Hayei Tamim is mechayev, the loss of all of the absurdity of superstitions and magical thinking, and so on, which of course the Rambam brings Vayetamim in context of that in Hilchos Akl. But the deeper sense of Vayetamim, according to the Rambam, is to learn how to use that meat brain in ways that it can actually work, so that you do not make the mistake of the translation of the Darwinian immediate heuristics into the mistake of this is the way the world is, which is about as intelligent as taking the little picture that you drew in kindergarten about here's my house and here's the sun shining and smiling over my house. And then 20 years later saying, yes, this was an accurate picture. And how do you know it was accurate? Because when I brought it home, Mommy said, that is so beautiful, little one. How wonderful you are. And incredibly, how many of us know thousands of people who do exactly that? They have a 5-year-old picture of the nature of reality. They brought it home, so to speak, to their rabbi or to whoever, and it was a beautiful picture, and therefore it's still the same picture. 100 years later, 200 years later, that's still exactly the same picture. After all, it's a beautiful picture then. Why can't it be a beautiful picture now? This idea of Lech Lecha means do not be fooled by the pictures. Your search is constantly towards a new reality, which is embedded in the whole concept of bris milah, in which you use the same razor. That's like an unbelievable chiddush, I think, in recognizing the interrelationship of bris milah to the v'hayei tamim. Because if you look in the parsha, there are two different chiyuvim. One of them is HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei comes to Avram Avinu and says, Yitalech lefanai v'hayei tamim. The other is Vayomer Elohim El Avraham Ani El Shaddai. The idea of Brit Milah, Atat Briti Shomor, sorry. The Atat Briti Shomor is indeed something else. That's Brit Milah. What is the Vayei Tamim and how does that relate to it? So there's got to be two completely different issues. One of which is this overall sense of how the Rambam describes the Tmimut as a mental development, in which Yisrael become chachamim mechukamim, in the lashon of the Navi, in which it's clear to us how not to be fooled, how only quacks can think in ways that are not completely consistent, which is the meaning of Tmimut, completely consistent across our entire experience of reality, on every level and with every additional piece of data. It's all renewed. This is the only way you can be tamim, otherwise you are going to end up fooling yourself with your Darwinian heuristics. But that's not how you want to survive if you search for life with a capital L. And once you recognize that, everything changes. Therefore, to get to Avram Avinu's Madrega Vayei Tamim, and to think what? That's the way he finds himself? It's the equivalent of, again, unbelievably. So when Noach was Tamim Hayabedorotav, well, it also means he was Nolad Mahul. Exactly. It's a given. But when it comes to Avram Avinu, not only is it not Nolad Mahul, but the entire thing is a process that is such an incredible process. Listen to this, that the Torah has to make you aware of how much it's a process, and don't you dare try to do it too early. Because in the Bris Bein HaBesarim, what do we find? This crazy story. Down comes the carrion eaters, right? So the ayat comes down, and Avram has to chase them away. I mean, it sounds like such a weird thing in the middle of the story of Bris Bein HaBesarim. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu can't handle things that, not to mess up the scene. I mean, the cameras are running. This is Ladeiras. I mean, for heaven's sakes, you got a good director. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu should keep the birds off of the set. But we don't need the birds to come on, and an Avram Avinu has to chase the birds off. It's Meshuggah. But as Rashi explains, the ayat, who is the ayat? The ayat is David ben Yishai. Who's David ben Yishai? The one that's Migain Sarecha B'Yadecha, B'Chachot Min, from Magain Avraham to Magain David. So he pops up immediately, of course, because he's the natural culmination of this process of Yibaram. So, and of course, of the process of Eimach HaShecha Gadol no fellas, pow, who's the one that handles the last stage? That last stage, which is, by the way, mentioned over here, unbelievably, in the Navi. Wow, great, in the Haftorah, unbelievable. So what is the Haftorah? Is the marker of how is it indeed, and we don't know how Avraham managed to fight this war. This is what Rabbeinu Pachya points out. You know, when you've got these four malachim, can I get four malchios, right? And now you hear about this war. This is a major world war. I mean, there's 9 empires that are fighting over here. And they step on Avram's toe. Oh, now, wait a minute, boys. You can have fun as much as you want. You're out of control. So what does he do? So in half a night, right? So in half a night, his couple of boys, maybe it was just him and one other, and maybe it was 300 some people, I don't know. But they managed in 3 hours to finish up these 9 empires. We'll decide what's happening. Throw everybody, okay, and we'll make the terms. Yes, says Rabbeinu Bach, that's the whole point. Ultimately, it's going to be that way, right? So when we talk about the 3-hour war, Lasid Lava, which we talk about in our Hoshana, Shalosh Shoyes, Hoshiana, those are those Shalosh Shows, which I think are Merumas, me that's the thing is, but I think it's Merumas in Vayecha Lecha Leim Laila, because it's only At Chatzos, you're being Mechalik the time that you had available between Tzeta Kochavim and Chatzot, which was 6 hours, now it's got 3 hours. That's the marker of the final war being 3 hours. But we never know. How do you manage to do that? So that appears in the Haftarah of this week's Parsha, in which we discover that this weird thing that mi heir mi mizrach tzedek yikreu l'raglo yitein lefanav goyim mlochim yard yitain ka'afarcha bo kikash nidaf kashto. That's all that it says. Now we don't know what that means until we get to the Gemara in Tainus, where that's that beautiful story of Nochem Ish Gamzu. So Nochem Ish Gamzu comes, and he's supposed to be the one that's carrying all of these multi-million-dollar diamonds in a safe to bring it to Caesar so that he can avert the tragedy that has been Nigzar in Rome against the Jews. The only one that can handle this, because he always says, Gamzu Tova. So he stays over at a bed and breakfast. Obviously, during the night, the owner of the bed and breakfast breaks open the safe, takes out all the diamonds, fills it up with dirt, and pretends nothing has happened. Nochem Ish Gamzu comes to Rome. This is the incredible gift that the Jews have presented you, Caesar. Oh, great Caesar. They open it up, and out comes a bunch of dirt and mud. And that's it. Destroy the Jews. Gamzu L'Tova. Like you do. So Eliyahu Hanavi shows up, says the Gemara right there, pretends to be one of the senators. It says, come on, they can't be that dumb. Maybe this is that incredibly advanced dirt of Avram Avinu that just looks like dirt, but is really guided missiles. And if you try to use it, well, they had this 30-year war they were fighting. 30-year war. Anyway, they had a 30-year war. They were never able to win it. Says, all right, let's try it. Took a handful of stuff. It all turned into guided missiles, blew up the enemies of it. Whoa! So they gave Nochem Ish Gamzu access to anything he wanted. The end of the story, of course, is he takes the stuff, comes back, and the people say, what? They never thought they'd see him alive. Not only this, he's got a whole troop of soldiers protecting him because he's got a safe filled with diamonds or whatever. The guy says, like, what did you bring? I don't know. Whatever, I just was here. So this guy tears down his house, digs up his basement, takes 20 truckloads of this dirt, at great expense, takes it all to Rome, presents it to Caesar and says, this is where it all came from. Obviously, it was nothing but plain old dirt. And he got himself and his family wiped out very quickly. And that was the end of the story. But it's a very important part of this story. Because what it means is that the interrelationship of Avram Avinu with everything around him basically turned it into usable things for humans. So that ultimately, what gives the power to Eretz Yisrael, Bizman Hazeh, to be a technological powerhouse, to be able to develop indeed pieces of dirt that shoot like missiles. These are all directly coming also from the Shorashim of the Parsha. And the idea of getting beyond the limitations of looking at things from the point of view of these Darwinian heuristics. So the final word, David HaMelech, comes down. And why does he come down? Well, because who's got patience for processes? That's the whole point. Avram Avinu has to chase it. It's not time. That means that part of the bris is the willingness to accept with patience the clarity that there is no way to hurry this process. You can only continue to constantly search in that quest for the meaning of the new meaning of survival, the meta survival, which is the survival of Tselem, the growth of life, and that becomes the essence of what it is that Avram Avinu has to do, which means that now awareness is the issue. But if awareness is the issue, then that means that the entire idea of Ki Tavo El Haaretz, which is the expression of Reishis Ein Reishis Ela Bikurim, and which is entirely predicated on awareness. Ki lo natan Hashem lachem lev ladat ve'einayim l'rot. It's the same einayim that were ein mimakom asher ata sham. It's exactly the same thing. Once you have been able to achieve Knisa La'aretz, then we're talking about this level of awareness. That's why Rashi talks about Shem being our Grizim and our Evo, because this is essentially Parshat Ki Tavo. This is where it's all coming from. So, of course, it involves, remarkably, even the tikkun of the Kviyat Tova Avodah Marishon, which is the topic of the bringing of the Bikurim Eni Kafui Tova, and which becomes over here the amazing change of relationship to women. So that at the beginning, the relationship is so awful that Sora Imenu actually says, Chamasi Alacha. You know what? That's it. You and me are finished. I'm going to God. Let him off you. I can't take it anymore. You know, so she's complaining to God, from which we learn out, never do that because you get knocked off first, which is sure enough what happened to her. But the point is that she was really right. And what it was that he was doing was utilizing her for reproduction. She gives him Hagar, and she says to him, if you looked at me as being your partner in reproduction, Hagar would not be looking down at me. You look at me as an incubator. That's all. And if I were the first woman to have rights as an android, that would be fine with you. So, and in the end, that Kamasi Alecha, he had to see was true. He had
that came out of it's Yishmael,
It's Yishmael, who was the one who this week was the first to grant rights to androids. But of course, that's only because they're all sex dolls. They would never do that for real women, right? So it's unbelievable. The androids, they have human rights. Imagine a woman wants to drive. Chas v'shalom. Anyway, so if you take a look at the amazing change here up at the end, what happens is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is yelling at him, you don't know the difference between your wife, Avot Sarah Ishtecha, Yoledet Lecha Beni. You think that's the same thing as Hagar? You're going to have to get a big lesson. And indeed, in the context of that lesson, we find an amazing thing. And that is that he says to Avram Avinu that now I am going to give a bracha. It's true at Briti, Akim et Yitzhak. But I am going to give a bracha to your wife, Sarah. And there, everything is going to change. Wait a second. Sarai ishtecha lo tikrat shema Sarai ki Sarah shema. Now note the double lashon. Uveirachti ota, v'gam natati mimena lecha ben, uveirachtia, v'ayta lagoyim. What are the two uveirachti? So you'll notice that the first uveirachti separates her from the bracha. It doesn't include the verb and the object in one word, which is always a sign of a greater integration, as the Rishonim point out. So uveirachtia is specifically the bracha to her. Uveirachti ota is that she will be able to reproduce and have a son for you. But the uveirachtia v'ayta lagoyim, the implications are incredible. This is where the nationality of Klal Yisrael is defined by the woman, as opposed to all of the goyim, where nationality is defined by the man. So this is by Tala Goyim, she will be the one who defines the nature of what it is to be a Ben Yisrael, which is as powerful a change in terms of meta evolution that sexual reproduction was in terms of Darwinian evolution. You mean I got to lose half of my genes to make it better? Yup, that's survival, buddy. And now you got to learn you're going to lose half of your control over everything in order to be more you. And it's because of that that in the end, the woman becomes, amazingly, the source of the Brit Milah itself. Because here the entire idea at Priti Hakim et Yitzchak is within this context. Because it's the woman who can here provide the connection to the Olam, which is the Brit is for. And it becomes that singularity and that ongoing development in which the connectedness to the earth as a given becomes so integrated with what it means to be human and the complete commitment to B'Tselem Yitalech Ish, that we find that Brit Milah is later called by Dvorah, Ad Shakamti Dvorah Shakamti Ein B'Yisrael. What is an Ein B'Yisrael? Bifroa Praot, that she taught everyone how to do Priya and not just to do Milah. It's amazing. Therefore, in the Torah later on in Tazria, Ishaki Tazria B'Yalda Zachar, B'Yoma Shmini Yemo B'Sar Loto. What's the connection between it? Everything. All based on this parsha. What deeper change can there be in the connection of Ish ve'Isha and all of the brachas that are given here at the end of the Haftarah to Yisrael? In that ultimately you don't need people. You can be Mitei Yisrael, Tolat Yisrael. You don't need power. You have your brains. You have this Brit. And because of that, forget about all of these people threatening you. Ata Yisrael Abdi Yaakov Asher Becharticha Zera Abraham Avi. That is the point. Hichzakticha Miktzot Haaretz. You have nothing to worry about. Al Tira Ki Imchani. What are you worried about? This is Tivak Shem V'lo Timtzeim Am Shem Matzutecha. Yuka'ayin Uke'efes. They're nothing. This is war. Am Shem Elchamtecha. They're babies. They're barely human. Ani Hashem Elokecha Machzik Yemincha. And I'm telling you, Al Tira Ani Azaticha. This is the Ne'um Hashem V'Goalech Kedosh Yisrael, to turn Klal Yisrael into a Morek Charutz Chadash Bal Pipiot, Tadush Harim V'Tidak Gvaot Kamot Tasim. So now you just are the ultimate razor blade, sharpened like a Maruk Chadash, grinding up the very mountains and throwing them off Tizraim V'Ruach Tisaim. Just throw it into the air and let the wind blow them away. Sa'arata Fitzotam. And what we're left with is Atata Gil Badunai, B'Gdosh Yisrael Titalal. Amen. And now it's time for Myra. So that is the introduction and theme and brief review of this week's shir for Lech Lecha. Bezrat Hashem. Hope to see you again very soon. Laila Tov. It's a grand moment.